is going on, everyone? So in this week's video, I just want to recap a little bit the trip to Zion this year. And it was a pretty crazy trip from the standpoint that it was the best fall color that I've ever seen in the 10 different seasons I've gone there. And it's the sort of conditions I'd been hoping for a long time. I mean, there's days that had this, blue sky, beautiful reflected light. There was a couple of days of thunderstorms, which was just so exciting just to be out in that kind of weather, to see how the place transforms and how the water was kind of flowing through the washes and it kind of reset that. And then, in the days after the thunderstorm, we had clear skies again. And also, by the time I got there, the color was just starting to peak a little bit. And by the time I left, the trees were starting to get pretty thin. So I saw basically the absolute best of fall color. But I gotta say, you'd think that this would make it incredibly easy. You'd think that having the best conditions would make it just so easy to shoot photos, but actually I found it to be a really big challenge. And I think a lot of that is just because when everything looks so good, when everything looks so ideal, it's so hard to figure out even where to place your camera because it's kind of a sensory overload thing. It's kind of in some ways like a place like Death Valley in the Salt Flats, where you have those really cool patterns of the sort of the ridges of the salt pan. And as you're just kind of walking around, after a while your eyes glaze over and you have a hard time making sense of it because it kind of starts all looking the same after a while. And there's a little bit of that, but also I learned that when the trees have that really brilliant color, they're kind of hard to photograph because you can't really shoot a close-up because it's just so much color. You have to kind of pull back and shoot a little bit of a larger scene. But that can be difficult to do sometimes because sometimes it's hard to isolate a tree against a background and have all the other conditions that work out really well. And as it turns out, it was my first photo on that trip, the photo on my first day there, that I liked the most. I did not think much about that photo in the moment I was actually shooting it because I felt everything was pretty rushed. I felt like I was only looking at a very small part of what the park had to offer. So I didn't even know if that would be, the most ideal subject. Maybe there'd be even something better around the corner. But I just kind of followed by instinct. I set up a composition. And if you guys watched the film reveal, you saw that. I kind of went into it not really expecting much about that photo, but ended up being actually one of my favorites from the trip. And it's kind of interesting the way that works. There'll be photos where I have high expectations for them, and then when I see them, I'm just disappointed. And then there'll be ones I didn't even think about that actually turn out to be some of my favorites. And it's not as though this is unique to shooting film, but I think just when you shoot film, it's just a little bit of an enhanced experience because you don't get that instant feedback of seeing how that photo turns out right away. In my case, I go on the trip, I get back, and then, it's about probably 10 days or even a little bit longer after I shot that photo that I can see it for the first time. So that was kind of a nice surprise. And then when I was a little bit later in the trip, when the leaves are starting to fall off the trees, things were starting to look really good at that point in time. There's really beautiful scenes, but after about 7 days, I just get worn out. I just get worn out to this point where I can see something that looks pretty good, but I'm not as motivated to try to find when the absolute best light's gonna be. So at that point, I just kind of start walking around and appreciating things. And that was one of the other reasons why I decided to spend that day walking around, kind of picking up trash, because I wanted to get out, I wanted to look at things. But at a certain point, I kind of knew I was done shooting photos. And it was also to kill time for the flight over Zion. And that was, I gotta say, a pretty awesome experience. I don't know if it fully comes through in the video, just because I found like the perfect song for that. And the song is only like 2.5 minutes long. So that's about as far as I could, show that particular scene. But hopefully it conveys some of the feeling of being up there. But I gotta say, it was awesome of Alan to take, Justin to take Marty, and to take myself up for that flight, just because it was a really cool experience. I mean, being in a small plane like that, you can kind of look around in every direction, forwards, backwards, left, right. And it was also kind of neat because, this was my 10th year overall going to Zion. But one of the areas that we flew over in that flight was kind of the North County Buttes, South County Buttes, Buckskin Gulch area. And that was actually where I went on my first solo trip. And that was one of the campgrounds, state line campground there, which is right on the Arizona-Utah border. There was a moment on that first trip, and I'm sure I've told the story in the past, but I got there, it was February, it was cold, I wanted to start a fire, but then like I lost my fire starter, and then I'm sitting there sifting through the ashes, trying to find it all. And it's a little bit of a moment of realization, but it's kind of cool to fly over that area and just see how much has changed over all those years. But I just want to thank everyone for watching videos, for commenting and everything. It was a pretty fun experience to share. And by the time you guys watch this, I will be in Death Valley on my next trip, hopefully getting some more material. And my plan is to visit some new locations as well, so we'll see how that goes. And one last thing before I wrap this video up, I just want to thank everyone for an absolutely amazing 2018. At the beginning of the year, I kind of set a goal for myself as far as what sort of income I need to be able to earn from photography to even be able to consider doing this full time. I just set an arbitrary number out there, not a fancy number or anything, but just something where I could pay the bills and pay the mortgage and all that. And it was at the very end of 2018, I actually achieved that goal. And that is in thanks to you guys. The box sets, the prints, the voluntary contributions, all that. It all adds up, and I was able to meet that goal. And I'm scaling back to 2 days a week now at my day job. And at some point I may very well do full time. I'm still gonna kind of have a foot in each world and kind of try to get some balance and everything. But I owe that all to you guys. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And I'm looking forward to what 2019 will bring. And I've got a feeling it's gonna be a pretty good year, and I got some pretty cool trips to some new locations in the works, and also possibly some spur-of-the-moment trips. So we'll see how that works out. But I wanna thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you around next week.